from 2010.
2010. Yeah.
2010, Brian.
Yeah, but look, so why am I doing this from 2010? Some will say, oh, it's so old, it's 12 years old, it's outdated. But when we look at this report and we look at what's going on, what's that?
It's still relevant.
It's still relevant,
Exactly.
and it's still the exact same problem that we haven't tackled.
I am sure it's still relevant, but just to update the date, to make it much more updated.
Yeah, the point is the date doesn't matter because it's timeless, and we still, as sales enablement leaders, people still have not executed in this way from a 12-year-old report. Yeah. So I like using the date. That's old.
Just look at table of contents, page 13. Random acts of self-support undermine the best laid strategies. Yeah.
It still happens today. Mark was just sharing that he's being asked to interview for sales enablement jobs, and it's instructional designers to build training content. It is not this table of contents.
Yeah. And I mean, just look at the other ones. Implementation and success require cross-functional collaboration. Yeah.
Yeah, still think, right? Well,
and how many companies really have that cross-functional collaboration? Not many.
And sales enablement emerges as a new strategic discipline. How many have a strategic discipline in place as opposed to building a course or creating a onboarding training and delivering it over and over again?
And Brian, one thing I can say, and perhaps I haven't said it enough to you, but also for the other ones present today to be aware of, because I was there in many of those Forrester tech sales enablement meetings, and I and my boss were there. And when we, 2 years later in 2012, had the opportunity to start building up a completely new sales enablement function in another very large global corporations. I mean, what we learned during those workshops, during those discussions, that really helped us build that big corporate function. So, and when we, ended that work, I mean, it was a cross-functional function sitting between, corporate leadership and the business units.
Right.
We had about 60 full-time sales enablement and sales operations people extended with dotted line reporting into us, 300 people. But we would never have been able to establish all of that if we had not been part of those discussions.
Right. Exactly. I appreciate that. And let's hear. So yeah, you can be Helena from 12 years ago, and we can look at this and say, focus on, because of all the change in confronting reality and the challenges that are happening, did you have to focus on pragmatic, profitable growth back then? Yes or no? And then do we need to focus on pragmatic, profitable growth today? Do we need to retool the sales engine today? Do we need to eliminate waste today? Do we need to differentiate at the point of sale today?
Yeah. But Brian, all those topics are still very accurate. My question to you, and also maybe to the others, would you like to organize on-live sessions? I would be so happy for you if you can organize that. We could organize a calendar with topics, this kind of topics that you are mentioning, and maybe to come back 10 years or 12 years ago and saying, well, we are still at the same situation today, but what is the difference, and how to help sales enablement people today. I think you have your knowledge, Brian. it's so huge. And in my point of view, but that is my point of view, you should share it on session, on
sure.
live sessions, because recording session is one thing, but when you do it on live, it's really different. Maybe at the beginning you will have just a few people, but if you have the support of all of us, with someone asking questions or doing a specific rule, I would like so much to support you in this kind of things, because you have the skills, you have the knowledge, you have everything that the others doesn't have.
I appreciate that. So let's do it right now with this. So we're recording this and we can post it. So let's go through this together, and you all can ask questions. You can engage. Helena was in the room 12 years ago, and let's have the discussion.
Just another question. Sorry, Brian. What the other things? I would like also, that is my opinion, but my opinion is not God. Huh? It's not the God opinion. So I let the others also sharing their opinion, what they think about that. Would you like to do this kind of things with Brian? Do you think it could be helpful for all of us, but also for the others, and also to make something different, and we will be involved on that.
Yeah, what do you all think? Sandrine's asking for your opinion. So Mark's muted. Mark's muted.
Is it about?
Sorry.
I'm not quite sure yet what exactly it is that you're trying to set up.
What she's saying is a lot of the content that is on the site or that is out that we are talking about at Orchestrate Sale, that Scott is talking about, is something that people want to talk through, they want to engage with, they want to be live with, they want to ask questions. And what if we had a forum for that, whether it's a webinar or even like what we're doing right now, something like this, and then you all help with that somehow, get the word out, or however you want to do it, but help get the word out to the community and create a forum for that so that we can advance the conversation. And I think what Sandrine might be reacting to is we have a document here that's 12 years old without a lot of progress being made as a profession to tackle some of these things. What else can we do? Because between us, we might be able to figure this out and help people along with that. So what might that look like? So it could be a webinar, it could be a meeting, it could be a session, it could be some sort of structured event. It could be a podcast or a vodcast, a video cast like this. And so she's just asking what you all think of that, because we've been doing action labs and we have courses and we have a lot of static content on the website. I think she's wondering about something that's a little bit more discussion oriented.
Exactly, but the only detail, sorry if I was not clear, but what I would like maybe is to, you are a LinkedIn member, as I can be, and you are probably requested to attend webinars, online webinars. I think it will be great for Brian to do online webinars through LinkedIn, because he has a lot of followers. So I think I would like to do what he did by the past with Scott, but at a more large level, because I think what he did by the past with Scott was very, very high level, much more useful to drive people, to bring people also in the sessions. And our role would be to support Brian in the discussion and also in the experience, and also to involve the others to speak. I don't know if I am clear. And the idea would be maybe what could be the topics that we could cover at the beginning to define a kind of agenda, 1 per month, twice per month, I don't know, not more, but something where Brian will be the boss or the presenter, and we will be here to support him, and we will learn with the others as well.
Yeah, come on, Brian, you've been lazy. What have you been doing?
Are you saying that the Inside Sales Enablement, the podcast, do you think that the topics discussed there between Scott and Brian and with invited people, that is too complex, that it's too high a level of sales enablement for most people? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Elena, sometimes it was very high level. If you look at, Elena, you said it, when Brian shared a few minutes ago, a document from 2010, you said something like that. It's the same today. It's still relevant. So that means the level is still the same. And I attended a lot of podcasts that Brian and Scott did together. And sometimes I was really lost because I didn't know.
Well, I don't. Okay, so yes, I mean, because sales enablement is such a big area, and there are many levels of it, because and I think we have all seen a number of reports when it comes to different maturity levels of sales enablement. I'm not sure what we would add to the discussion. I'm thinking about, there is the Sales Enablement Society that is also sort of encompassing, well, most people, and also at lower levels. So I'm not quite sure exactly for where the value add would be and for whom.
Just about that,
because the area is so big.
It's so big, but that is something that we can define together.
To say a lot of things here. Sorry, Sandrine.
No. What I was saying, Elena, that is something that we can fix all together. But I let maybe Mark speak, because please, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just typing away. All right. So kind of not opposing sides to it, but in some of our past conversations, kind of following Brian's lead on this, it indicated that, hey, you know what? We want people that are really interested in this. And if you're going to sign up for a Quest, which these courses are, right, you can opt out, because it's not an easy journey. It's not for the faint of heart. It is, well, there is tremendous value, obviously, and we see it. It is, not everyone's in a position to want to do it and carry this forward. So, I thought we had discussed, and of course, just my observation that we almost want to grow this a bit more organically. Not we, I include myself in we, in that you have people that really understand what we're doing and the importance of learning this mindset and how this is going to transform yourself and your organization over time. Now, is there anything wrong with inviting people, but what are they, going to get as a result? Because everybody is, unless it's Brian's followers that he has that are really into it, and they'll be like, "Hey, this is great stuff. I want to be into this." I think we could run the risk of running a webinar like everyone else is running in LinkedIn. You know, join this. This is sales enablement, and we're interviewing this person from here. So I think if we're going to do that, we would make sure that you're staying true to the kind of the core tenets of what orchestrate sales is, and because I think in what we do, it's not so easy just to chop it into examples right away. I don't know. That's just my
Yeah, the differentiator. So we started with this discussion around showing a report from Scott Santucci from 12 years ago that looked at what is sales enablement, where he clearly defined. And I was working with Scott at the time. We started working on this in 2008. And so he published this in 2010. And when he put this out, to Helena's point, she was in the room and she was there. And I wonder if you're over here on the right. You and Robert were probably being interviewed over here. And we were probably talking through that. And Scott talks about, look, we should be focused on pragmatic, profitable growth, continuing to retool the sales engine because executives are worried about that, eliminating waste because executives are worried about that, differentiating at the point of sale because executives are worried about that, transforming salesperson's selling behavior outside of their comfort zone because executives are worried about that. Why are they worried about that? Because there's a lot of colliding forces. These colliding forces create a need to drive growth, and there's very specific levers that executives can pull to drive growth. These levers exist today. These colliding forces exist today, 12 years later. SG&A is still out of whack 12 years later. Buyers are stratifying their suppliers into a caste system. That happens today, 12 years later. Buyers differentiate among vendors based on how they engage. That happens today, 12 years later. Executive level buyers rarely find value from conversations with vendor salespeople. That happens today, 12 years later. And it's worse. It's getting worse. So when you look at this report, it's a snapshot in time of the exact same problem. So what did he do? He put everybody into a room and he talked it through with these executives. And these executives had to discuss what it means to grow. How do you grow? Well, we've got to drive the right activities. Marketing thinks it's about content. HR groups thinks it's about skills. Sales leaders want to drive activity. That exactly happens today. Everybody gets their team on that. That exactly happens today, 12 years later. That creates a bunch of random acts of sales support. That happens today. It's worse 12 years later. So when you look at what this represents, it's the exact same problem. Random acts of sales support undermine strategies. They're expensive. They divert resources. They confuse customers. They create organizational drag. These random acts do. This is happening today, 12 years later, and it's worse 12 years later. All of that equals a lot of wasted money spent on salespeople. $135,000 per rep per year 12 years ago to enable salespeople, and they don't achieve growth strategies. So what have executives done? They've built products, and they want products to sell themselves because salespeople aren't being successful. Why aren't salespeople being successful? Because nobody's built the sales enablement bridge to help them be successful. What is sales enablement? It's a strategic, ongoing process that equips all client-facing employees with the ability to consistently and systematically have a valuable conversation with the right set of customer stakeholders at each stage of their problem-solving cycle to optimize the return on investment. Instead of tackling that, sales enablement people say, oh, that's too complicated. It's the right tools at the right time. But 12 years later, this point, holistic systemic view is still a problem 12 years later. There is no strategic ongoing process except what we're trying to do at Orchestrate Sales. What does it mean to equip all customer-facing employees with the ability to consistently and systematically have a valuable conversation? Where are those discussions happening? What does that look like? 12 years later, it's still a problem. And Scott broke all this down, and that's what we're trying to tackle. Now, to your point about what it means to be successful, and there are a lot of people in sales enablement. When Scott and I started in 2008, there were about 3,000 people with the title on LinkedIn. 2006, the domain name of salesenablement.com was registered. We knew those people. Now there are hundreds of thousands of sales enablement people who don't think this way about sales enablement. They think about it as a task. And I put this in one of my YouTube videos, but the problem that we're running into is not helping the masses. The problem that we are running into is the fact that people are not viewing sales enablement the same way we do. What I mean by that is sales enablement can be viewed a lot of different ways. Sales enablement can be a capability, it can be a function, it can be a discipline, it can be a skill, a technology, a role, a process. And what is happening in the sales enablement space is it's down here. Sales enablement is a technology and a skill. If you ask what sales enablement process exists, you might get sales kickoff, or as it's called in the business, SCO, because we like to call it SCO for some reason. But sales kickoff is a process. When you talk about it as a role, it's usually an individual contributor role. Is it a discipline? Well, what are the disciplines? Is it a function? What are the aspects of the function? And then what's the capability? What is the strategic capability? So these are all of the prisms in which people look at sales enablement. The challenge that I have with inviting and tackling everybody's opinion is that many of them, it's a pyramid. There's very few people up here. There's a lot of people down here. All Sales Enablement Pro and a lot of the vendors are down here pushing the technology view. There are people talking about the skills and developing skill sets and making sure that disadvantaged people have access to the skills they need to be sales enablers. That's down here. The challenge is what we're trying to do is define the capability. We want it to be a go-to-market capability. We want to build and help people become VPs of sales productivity, which is why we started and why Scott started the Sales Enablement Society. But this discussion is nowhere to be had. This is discussion we're having. So I don't want to have a discussion to reach these people. There's plenty of stuff out there. I want to have a discussion about what it means to build out the sales enablement capability. And that's what we're doing at Orchestrate Sales. That's how we tackle the 12-year repeating problem. It's not 12 years of continuous evolution. It's 1 year of progress repeated 12 times over. And I'm not doing that anymore. I don't do that. And if everybody wants to repeat the same thing 12 times over, then they can continue to do that. The first reports that we put out were on sales onboarding. What's the biggest buzzwords in sales enablement? Onboarding. The first thing that Scott put out as a webinar was you should have a sales enablement charter. What does everybody talk about in sales enablement? Having a charter. But where are the people discussing what that really means? And that's what we're doing at Orchestrate Sales. And it's interesting how little people want to jump into that. This is not for everybody, I get that. But for a profession that believes in professional development of everybody else, there's very few people that want to invest in professional development of themselves in sales enablement.
And it's not easy in terms of, the exercise you're going through, because there is, again, pitchforks and, torches that you run up against. So,
it's very easy to discount. Very easy to discount what I'm doing and what Scott's doing as too academic, too strategic, too high level.
You got to really, keep yourself. I don't want to say your blinders, but you have to stay, you have to stay true to, what the core is in doing this and
Yeah.
to see the value. And it's not easy to do because it's like, wow, this is great. And then all of a sudden you get back into your real world and like, well, I'm not functioning in that real world. Unfortunately, I'm in the more theoretical. But what's good about the courses, again, is they're practical. They're asking you to do things which do help you in your thinking.
Yeah.
So,
So what is the differentiator? What are we trying to do? It's higher up this food chain here of
right.
pyramid. So
I think it's very important, Brian, that you stay true to that.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
That said, what do you think? Do you would like to do something on live together? I think today I am still looking for a new job, but for all of you that you are engaged in a company, I think if you participate to on live sessions supporting sales enablement topic, it would be great for you. I don't know what you think.
Sandrine, one thing I don't understand is why should we do more than orchestrate sales? Isn't it better to get the right people joining orchestrate sales?
No, maybe so maybe I'm not clear enough what I am thinking, but maybe you are not agree with me. But I think LinkedIn has a big impact in the sales enablement, and I don't know if you are requested to attend webinars, to participate, but I think we have a role, or Brian has a big role to elevate the sales enablement position with the knowledge that he has. And there are, today sales enablement, we can find a lot of people talking about sales enablement, but at the high level, as Brian and Scott did by the past, there is just few.
So your point really that what you want to see specifically is a webinar on LinkedIn. So yes. that is the forum you want to see webinar.
Absolutely, Helena. I think Brian is already doing a lot of things from himself, but he's not. I think there is something missing, which is I am there. I am doing online sessions, covering topics that you can understand, that you could be interested on, topics that sales enablement experts or not could be very interested to attend, but with a high level of knowledge that Brian can share with the others. I don't know if I am clear enough.
I can interrupt for a second. I mean, there's always hey, listen, do you want to pilot it if it makes sense even, and see what type of results you get, and are those the results that you're looking for? Okay, because are we getting people that, want to drive more traffic to the orchestration sales site to see Brian's videos that he's put together? I mean, certainly. I mean, I think we want to do that, right? But I think what we're looking for is to converts, right? People that learn this is what it is and say, oh, wait, you know what? I'm doing what everything else is doing, and this is not going to take me in the direction long-term that I want to go. I need to be converted. I think what we're trying to do is convert people that are willing to see.
Yeah, and I think what Sandrine is saying, yeah, that's exactly right. And I think Sandrine's saying we can find more people on LinkedIn is all. And I tend to agree with her, but I also think it's the structure. So the structure and the consistency are a challenge, right? Like it's hard to orchestrate these things, right? So it's hard to orchestrate the action labs. It's hard to orchestrate and put out the consistent content. But I think a webinar and things like that are doable. It's just, it takes, you got to build the slides, you build all these things, you got to coordinate, post it, have it, link, pay for the platform. It's orchestrating technology, people, process, information, right? So I think we're all on the same page of how do we reach more people. I'm definitely looking for folks that want to tackle a strategic view, and I'm definitely interested in finding more of them. I think that I have a newsletter, I have a YouTube channel, we have the podcast that still gets hundreds of downloads a month. I'm posting on LinkedIn constantly. I have 10,000, 12,000 people in a specific group. And then I have 12,000 followers on LinkedIn. So they're getting exposed to the content. The challenge is, the question I have, the thing that I'm curious about is, with all of those followers, what does it take for them to engage in Orchestrate Sales? Because surely they know about it. And I think it has to do with there's so much busyness today, and it's a very tactical position, and it's very hard to carve out time to tackle the more strategic challenge. And also, very few executives are asking for that specifically. The perceived value of enablement by sales leaders is tactical execution, not strategic value. So I think people are confused by this strategic message and how it resonates internally to what they're seeing in a day-to-day stance. They haven't explored, like you all have, like others have, creating a brand new position for themselves internally, taking over other groups internally, like others have that have come in through Orchestrate Sales, elevating their role to a VP level, like others have inside of Orchestrate Sales. They don't know it exists. So that's the bigger challenge. So it's not, to me, Sandrine, what we're saying is, it's not about more things, and it's not about more in LinkedIn. I'm saying it's about what is the differentiated value of orchestration, and how do we help people see what that is. And that's very difficult, because right now there's not a lot of people wanting to explore it like you all do. But I would rather talk to you all about it than find others who are confused by what we're doing, and also want to dismantle it because it doesn't resonate with everybody. I think there's plenty of things for everybody. There's not a lot of things for strategic orchestrators, and that's what we're focused on here. And then and I think, Sandrine, you understand that, and I think what you're saying is, yes, and you could probably find more strategic orchestrators on LinkedIn. They're probably out there. So, I'm definitely willing to explore that, but what would that look like?
Brian, I was thinking about LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a very powerful tool, which can bring you a lot of traffic, but not only a lot of traffic. You post a communication saying that you are organizing a webinar, and it is people can attend very quickly through a link. I think the labs that you are doing are good, but are not. How do you say that? They are not. It is not in the big picture.
It's not easy
to find. Not easy to find the information. You know?
Yeah. So let's park that whole thing. You guys have, we have limited time, but I get that, and we've talked a lot about how do we reach more people, how do we make it easier to find, how do we make it. Those are marketing things to me, and yeah, I mean, the challenge I have, the more people that get engaged, the more questions they have, which is good, because curiosity is good. I would like you all to help answer those questions and have the discussions and help bring people on their journey, right? We've all been on a journey Helena and I have been on the journey for 12 to 15 years. It's like the same conversations over and over again. How do we elevate the profession? And it takes a village. So.
And I think, Brian, one of the very key things you mentioned it here, and you and I have spoken about it as well, and that is for the level of sales enablement that we are talking about, so the function and the capability level, the target audience for that is really C-suite, board level, and perhaps C-suite minus one. And to get those people on board on a systemic sales enablement journey, holistic journey, that is the really big issue. Because if I can get them on board on that, then it's so much easier to speak about all of the different components, looking at it in a matrix, in a framework. What are all of the various underlying processes, activities, tools, systems, everything, the roles? How does all of it fit together? Including the cross collaboration, the orchestration, and so on. But the real level to have that discussion is at the very, very top of the organizations, and it's not easy to get into that level.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And we can continue the conversation around that and figure that out. That is what we're trying to do. We are trying to elevate people. Like, I would like you all to become VPs of enablement and VPs of productivity. I'd like you to be able to differentiate yourself from go-to-market strategy teams or from CMOs and field marketing teams, et cetera. So that is the challenge, because right now our differentiation is, instead of having HR train our people, enablement can do the training because we can talk to sales. That's the biggest differentiator that sales enablement people have. Instead of outsourcing sales training to a vendor, we can do sales training in-house,
Right.
and we'll train your sales enablement equals training and onboarding programs for sales. That's the bulk of enablement today.
Agreed.
And also, for instance, in many organizations, corporate audit, the one area that corporate audit are horrendously bad at auditing is the entire sales area. Because normally the guys who are involved in auditing, they just don't understand sales and everything that goes into sales and the whole area covered by sales enablement. So sales enablement can go in and do a lot of work in that area as well.
Fully
Yeah.
agree.
Yep. So, Eric, what do you think? You've been kind of quiet.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, well, do you want to hear something controversial and edgy?
Sure.
We will do. When have we not?
This is another example of a Putin problem.
Why is that? Why do you say that?
Because we all know what happened. We all know what's happening, and no one wants to do anything about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You don't try.
My wife and I were talking about that yesterday, as we all know everybody can, the whole world can look at what's happening in Ukraine, but who's really willing to step up and do anything about it? And yeah, I agree. That's the sales enablement challenge. That's what I need. That's what I need you all help to do.
Well,
There's your phraseology of the day.
right.
Yeah.
It is, but
I not agree.
that's where the heroic piece comes in. I mean, you have to be, you have to look at this as, there's some value in the transformation that we're trying to elicit here through this different lens of looking at how things work together and just getting away from I think again it's productitis and complexity. I talk a lot about trying to reduce all the stuff that salespeople do, and I get a lot of wow, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well,
What are we gonna do?
How do we go about doing that, right? And,
Yeah, I did a audit of new hire training last week, and I came back with said of the new hire training for sales, I put it into buckets, right? So the content is about sales process or policy. So the content is about our
Right.
product or our company. The content is about customers and what customers need to make decisions. And when I look at those buckets, 95% of this new hire training was about product and company and sales policy. Less than 5% was actually about who do we need to talk to and what do we need to say? What are the challenges that customers have? How do they make decisions that would even get us involved in the conversation? And when I did the readout, the sales enablement leadership said, wow, that's a great point you're making, but that's not what we signed up to do. And we have to be careful that we don't take that on, because if we start taking on the buyer stuff, then we're going to end up with all this work to do. And really, it should be somebody else's job. And I said, well, nobody else is doing it. So whose job would it be? And I, just sat there. And they said, well, I understand what you're saying. I understand that that's a problem. And actually, everybody would probably agree that that's the problem, but we're not going to tackle that. And I'm just shaking my head. That's the moment of truth example of what's wrong with sales enablement today. Do sellers, do they need to understand buyers or not? Yeah.
Well, they think
So
they do.
that's the question.
You know?
And if we say it's too hard for us, then we're just passing that on to salespeople. And then we make it worse in sales enablement because we'll just end up being a megaphone for all the product stuff. And we're just amplifying inspection and productitis and megaphone of product material instead of focusing on what customers need to hear. So we're actually in sales enablement, you end up being part of the problem.
And
Yeah,
instead
because we
of
have sales
simplifying-
enablement. Yeah, go ahead.
And instead of simplifying for the poor sales guy, we are just adding on and on and on to more
Yeah.
content, more process, more things to do instead of identifying what's really relevant and getting rid of the rest.
Right. And so, sales enablement, we should have that function because we need to have a lot more information that goes to sales. We need to have a lot more clarity to sales. We need to inspect sales more. So there's this false sense of security that I'm in sales enablement. I have sales in my title, enablement in my title. I'm strategic. When really, when you look at it, sales enablement is the guards at the prison. They're the ones keeping salespeople accidentally, keeping them in prison by actually amplifying what they don't need. Instead of saying, when a sales enablement leader says we're not going to explore what buyers really need to understand, and that's not really our job to understand our customers and our company, then they're part of the problem in my book. And I said, well, why don't you want to do that? He's like, well, it's not that I don't want to, I don't really know how to do that. And I don't have the cycles to figure it out. And I'm like, yep, that's the challenge.
Why are you in sales enablement?
Because I can be in sales enablement, make a lot of money, and get poached from company to company. And everybody's telling me how much the profession is growing and how great it is, and I'll just move around, just like others, and until the bubble bursts, and then other people are more strategic and they start barking orders at sales enablement people. That's what's going to happen eventually if we don't elevate the profession. So that's just an example. I like Eric's analogy or his point about what the problem is. We see these things, people see these things in sales enablement. They're not willing to tackle it because they don't know how, or it's too much about the ecosystem challenge, which is exactly what we're trying to counter at Orchestrate Sales, is how to do that. All right, so the last thing I want to share is something that I've been working on based on these conversations and get your feedback. So what I thought about was, from an actionable perspective, how would this work? How would we put all this together? What is the business process of enablement, and how do we create a structured framework that people can go implement? So these are the pillars of enablement that we've been talking about at Orchestrate Sales. How do we understand the growth strategy? How do we understand what the competitive landscape is, what our differentiation is, and then what our sales teams are and how we're supporting sales? How do we translate that sales strategy into an enablement strategy? Then who's involved? What's the cross-functional view? What's the roles, responsibilities? How do we prioritize and resource? What is our function? If our function is a training function, that's different requirements than if our function is about removing waste from the ecosystem. And then you get into services: pipeline enablement services, talent enablement services, message enablement, organizational enablement services. And then activating those services through programs, projects, and tasks, and monitoring that, and then driving change and adoption to make it stick. This is I'm calling it the orchestrated growth framework. This is what enablers should be doing. But right now, a lot of them are doing event management and
Yeah.
trying to measure it, right? So to me, I'm trying to make it, so Sandrine, you started with the challenge of how do we make this more actionable? This is an attempt to make it more actionable, to say, well, let's take a look at your enablement function. Let's take a look at what you are doing in enablement, and are you orchestrating people, process, information, and technology in each of these? And most people in enablement are not building out services, they're doing event management. So they're down here in this highly tactical view. What we're trying to explore is up here in Orchestrate Sales, so that when we activate, we are activating root cause challenges and we're activating services. So this is my framework here. There's processes underneath. For structure, you have to have a plan, test, refine, and relationship management process. For services, how you communicate the value. What is value communication at your company? Who's buying? What's the buying process? What's the sales process to underpin those services? How you activate, right? So I use, this is basically what I do and how I do it. I just didn't have it out in a framework before.
Hey, Brian. Just for consistency purposes, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but should we go left to right from tactical to strategic?
You mean it's or right to left? You mean I should swap them, or what do you mean?
Yeah. Well, most of the slides that you've talked about, either the growth of enablement team or the mindset. There's a left to right on the page from where you are now to where you want to be. Is this that same type of continuum? And normally strategic is on the right and tactical is on the left.
Oh, in our other content.
Yeah, and that's where you're heading. So I'm saying from a consistency standpoint, is that all? Add it all. If it's not important, then I'm then
yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't know. I'd have to think about it some more.
If not, no. But I mean, I like how this is all laid out in terms of it captures everything. Particularly that event planning piece. Trust me, that just sucks.
Yeah, that's how we end up with 1 year of improvement 12 times over. Is we're people in sales enablement are focused down here.
Yep.
how you tackle and elevate the profession is you become more strategic and become an orchestrator. What does that look like?
That's the key.
What do you think, Helena or Sandrine, Eric?
You know, to me, stuff that I work on with my clients, it's even more simple than this. And rather than thinking about whether it belongs in sales enablement or RevOps or sales leadership or whatever, it's 3 simple questions. And some of them are captured here. Who are your customers? We do that through personas and segmentation. Why should they buy from you? What's your unique value proposition, and how do they want to go about doing it? Whatever role you're in, if you can just get people to answer those 3 questions, the process falls in place, the business model falls in place, the messaging falls in place, the training falls in place, everything.
Yeah, and get people to actually agree on those 3 questions.
Right.
And then orchestrate the ecosystem to be able to support those 3 questions. Yeah.
Yes, but it's the nucleus.
Yeah.
And usually people can focus on 3 things. And if we can't, then we're back into the same problem, which is, it's 3rd graders playing soccer and forget about it.
You know, it's an interesting point. And I was just from my example where I work, that in our business to business sales in software as a service, right? OpenText, that's what we do with different business units. The process is driven by analytical type people, meaning the solution architects, solution consultants, technical. You know what I'm saying? So when you're looking at things, certainly they understand processes and have to understand that, but they're looking at it not from maybe not from enough of an understanding personas and sales. I don't know. It's a different type of sales mentality that I think solution consultants bring to an organization and impart their, on how to train. This is what we think you need to know, right? Based upon our world of, being a business value consultant and building an ROI as to why you should undertake this software and what it's going to do for your, processes and initiatives and whatnot.
Yeah.
Just an observation that I'm having personally that I'm seeing.
Yep, makes sense. All right. Well, I appreciate the discussion. We covered a lot of different ground today. It was interesting. Helena, was it fun to take the time machine back 12 years ago and look at that?
You haven't aged a bit, Helena.
Sorry?
You haven't aged a bit.
Oh my God. Well, you have to ask Brian about that.
Yeah, she hasn't aged a bit.
I think both of us have a bit more gray hairs than we did then.
That's right. And I think getting the word out about orchestrated sales and continuing to chip away at the strategic view, whatever we can do to like and share and send out the videos and take the courses, and maybe we back off the action labs and we change the structure to live streams and we do more discussions like this. I'm happy to do that type of stuff too. And maybe it's a format change instead of continuing down the action lab route. So we can keep working through that. Figure it out as we go.
I'm sure that you can bring much more traffic, because Brian, a lot of people don't know you, even if you have I don't know how many followers. You could help so many people.
I appreciate that.
That is my point of view. Sorry to be so insistent, but I really think that there is something to do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I want to help people, so I appreciate that. That's why I'm passionate about what we're doing, and we don't have a lot of money, we don't have any staff, and we don't have any vendor backing. So anything we can do to figure out the movement, right?
You don't need, I don't know if there is a cost or not, but I don't think so. If we decide to do a live session and asking LinkedIn to post the event, it is, please go ahead, subscribe to this webinar, which is scheduled on April, I don't know when.
We're going to hold it in Las Vegas.
Sorry,
An in-person event.
An in-person event in
At the
Mauritius.
Bellagio.
Oh, but I really think that there is a way to help much more people because they don't know you, even if you have a lot of followers. I always heard that there is a big gap between the followers that you can have and the followers who are really following you. And
Yeah.
there is a big gap, but these followers that you have, it's a big potential that you can the followers that you have, it's a potential people that you can bring to attend your sessions or to be much more aware about what you are doing. That is my opinion. Sorry again.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I understand. It's not. Yeah, it's just. I get it, and I think it's whatever you all can do to help invite people, get people like and share. I mean, maybe Sandrine write up a little bit about what we talked today and post it, and on LinkedIn, and we can share that.
Tell me how to do that. Tell me how to do that. I will do.
You go to LinkedIn and say add post and write a post. Go for it.
Oh, we want it out before midnight.
Tomorrow morning when you wake up.
What do you want from me to write? Do you want from me to
speak from the heart? No, you just figure it out. I'm not gonna. This is part of what we're doing, right? Like
I am going to ask you to do live sessions. I'm not sure that you would love to hear from that. Really,
well, we did a live session today. I'm gonna put this on the YouTube channel. So maybe this is our new format.
But I think you have
Helena.
No, I was just thinking, okay, what interest is this conversation for others?
Oh, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Well, I mean, when you talked about the article and what hasn't changed there, yes.
All right, you guys. I'll talk to you later. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Good seeing you all.